Hey guys, what's going on? It's Shatterpoint back with another video, and in this one we're going to be talking about Batman the Animated Series, episode Nothing to Fear. Batman the Animated Series was the series done in 1992 and still stands as one of the best interpretations of the character that has ever been seen. So our story starts off with a helicopter flying through Gotham City. We then focus in on the two passengers in the helicopter. Though we can't see their faces, we can see that one of the passengers is holding a gun. The scene then focuses on a charity that's being held for Gotham University. Specifically, we focus in on two attendees of the charity. They're talking about how the university is going downhill between the robberies and the vandalism, and they wonder when it will end. We then see a doctor of the university, Dr. Long, leaving the charity with a briefcase. A news reporter named Summer Gleason chases after him. Summer Gleason then asks Dr. Long if she can ask him a few questions about the recent robberies and vandalisms of the university. Dr. Long then agrees, but tells her to keep it quick because he is in a hurry. She then goes on to ask him if he knows why anyone would want to destroy a university. He replies with no, but one more disaster and students would be terrified to set foot on campus. Summer Gleason and Dr. Long then walk past Bruce Wayne into an elevator. Bruce then follows both of them into the elevator. Once in the elevator, Bruce then greets Summer Gleason. Summer then asks Dr. Long if he knows Bruce Wayne. Bruce then extends his hand to Dr. Long. Dr. Long then looks away and says his father and I attended school together. He had big plans for you, Bruce. Bruce then replies with, well, I'm sure he would be pleased. Wayne Industries is more prosperous than ever. Dr. Long then replies with, pleased. Back when your father was alive, Wayne was a name that demanded respect. Now all it stands for is a self-centered playboy. It's a good thing that your father didn't live to see what you've done with his name. He would have died of shame. Dr. Long then leaves the elevator. Summer Gleason chases after him, saying, wait, I didn't get to finish my interview. With Dr. Long now gone, Summer looks back at Bruce and says he's probably just venting his frustrations over what's happening to the university. The doors to the elevator then close. Dr. Long and Summer are both gone and Bruce is the only one left in the elevator. Through the window of the elevator, Bruce then sees the helicopter land on the rooftop of the university bank next door. Bruce then leaves the elevator in a hurry. The scene then focuses on the university bank next door. Specifically the security guard of the bank. The room is quiet and nothing is going on. Suddenly there's an explosion from the ceiling and it knocks the security guard to the floor. And then on the other side of the newly made hole in the ceiling, we see the Scarecrow and his henchmen. Then they drop a ladder down into the room. They climb down the ladder and the security guard then confronts them. The Scarecrow then sprays the security guard with his fear toxin. The security guard then collapses to the floor, terrified because he thinks he has spiders all over him. The henchmen then ask the Scarecrow what he did to the security guard. The Scarecrow then says, I helped him visualize his innermost terror, which is obviously arachnophobia. The henchmen then reply with, what the heck is that? Scarecrow then says, it's fear of spiders, you idiot. Now to the vault. Scarecrow and his henchmen then make their way into the vault. One of the henchmen gets excited at the sight of all of the money in the vault. The Scarecrow then says, take what you can and then burn the rest. This is not about money, it's about revenge. The Scarecrow then pulls out a gas can and starts pouring it all over everything in the vault. The henchmen follow, doing the same. Batman then enters the vault and beats up the henchmen. The Scarecrow then throws fear toxin bombs at Batman. They land at his feet and then engulf him in fear gas, though they have no effect because Batman is wearing a gas mask. The Scarecrow then says, oh, a gas mask, perhaps you are as resourceful as they say. Batman replies with, who are you? The Scarecrow then says, I am fear, I am the terror of Gotham, I am the Scarecrow. Scarecrow then lights a flare. Batman then says to him, give it up, there's no way out. The Scarecrow then says, except through you. A henchman then jumps on Batman's back, and the two struggle. The Scarecrow then pulls out a dart gun and then shoots Batman in the back of the neck with a fear toxin dart. Batman then turns around and grabs the Scarecrow. Scarecrow then drops the flare and it lights the gasoline on the floor, engulfing the entire room in flames. Batman then pins the Scarecrow to the wall, and then Batman collapses to the floor, weak from the fear toxin. As he falls to the floor, he rips off a piece of Scarecrow's mask. Scarecrow then says, "What terror keeps the Batman awake at night?" Scarecrow then says to his henchmen, "Come on, you cretins, our work here is done," and then he leaves the vault. Batman, still gripping the piece of the mask that he ripped off, tries to make his way to the vault door. Batman then stops because he sees his father in the flames in front of him. Batman then says, "What? This can't be." Bruce's father then goes on to say that he's failed him. He's disgraced the family's name. The sprinklers in the vault then turn on because of the fire, putting it out. With the fire now extinguished, Batman exits the vault. The police then enter the bank and ask Batman what happened. Batman then tells them, "Scarecrow." The police say, "Scarecrow? What do you mean?" The guard from before then hollers to the police from behind a desk. The guard then says, "He's right, some guy dressed like a scarecrow came in here and tried to torch the place." Detective Harvey Bullock then walks into the room and says, "Alright, well where is this scarecrow?" The guard then says, "Well, he got away." Harvey Bullock then says, "You mean Batman let him get away?" Harvey Bullock then walks towards Batman. Harvey then looks down at Batman's fist, gripping the piece of Scarecrow's mask. Harvey Bullock then says, "What do you got there, vigilante? Looks like police evidence. Hand it over." And then Harvey Bullock tries to take it by force and shoves Batman. Batman then shoves Harvey back, and after stumbling back a few feet, Harvey pulls his gun. Police Commissioner James Gordon then walks into the room and says, "What's going on here?" Detective Harvey Bullock then says to Commissioner Gordon, "Zorro here is withholding police evidence." They both then look at where Batman was, and nobody is there. Jim then looks at Harvey and says, "You were saying?" The scene then goes to Scarecrow's hideout, where the Scarecrow and his henchmen are watching the news, where Summer Gleason is on talking about the arson attempt on the university. The Scarecrow then turns off the TV, turns to his henchmen and says, "It seems that I have underestimated the Batman, but at least the university is finished." One of Scarecrow's henchmen then says, "Why do you hate the university so much?" The Scarecrow then goes on to explain that he used to be a professor that worked at the university, specializing in terror and phobias. He became obsessed with fear and its gripping power. Later though, when he became the university's lead professor in psychology, he began conducting experiments involving fear. Dr. Long and the rest of the board did not agree with his experiments, so they fired him. So now the Scarecrow is going to teach the university the true meaning of terror. The henchmen then look at each other and say, "Wow, he was a real professor." We then focus in on the newspaper that one of the henchmen was reading. The newspaper is talking about another charity event that's going to be held for the University Museum. The scene then goes to the Batcave, where Bruce is sitting at the Bat computer trying to analyze the piece of Scarecrow's mask that he ripped off. While the Bat computer is analyzing the piece of Scarecrow mask, what Bruce's father said at the bank vault about Bruce being a failure and a disgrace to the family name is haunting Bruce. The scene then focuses in on one of the monitors of the Bat computer. The news is on, and Summer Gleason is the reporter. She's talking about how at the University Bank, Batman failed to capture the Scarecrow. Alfred then enters the Batcave and shuts off the monitor to the Bat computer. He then says, "Imagine that, a man dressed up in a frightening costume in Gotham, scaring people. What will they think of next?" Alfred is saying this as he's hanging up the Batsuit. Bruce then goes on to say, "The real question is, why would Scarecrow want to destroy the university?" Alfred then looks at Bruce and says, "Are you alright, sir?" Bruce then goes on to explain that Scarecrow hit him with the fear toxin. Bruce then goes on to explain that he's having horrible visions about his father. In his visions, he's saying that Bruce is shaming the family name. Alfred then goes on to say that that's rubbish, that he knows that Bruce's father would be proud of him, because he is proud of him. Alfred then says, "Come on, you just need some chicken soup and some rest." The scene then goes to a charity event being held for the University Museum. We focus on Dr. Long, who has a briefcase out where the charity donations are being held. Suddenly, the room starts to be filled with fear gas. The Scarecrow and his henchmen then walk up to Dr. Long. The Scarecrow then says, "Thank you, Dr. Long, I'll be taking that," and then he grabs the briefcase with the donations in it. Dr. Long then says, "Over my dead body." The Scarecrow then says, "If you insist," and then he sprays Dr. Long with his fear gas. Dr. Long then looks at his hands and he sees that they're turning to nothing but bone. Dr. Long then screams out for help. He then passes out from terror and collapses to the floor. Scarecrow then says to his henchmen, "Take him along, his terror has just begun." The Scarecrow's henchmen then carry Dr. Long up a staircase. The Scarecrow then looks into the room of the charity to see all of the attendees, terrified, attacking each other and screaming in fear. The Scarecrow then runs up the same staircase with a briefcase full of donations in his hand. Halfway up the staircase, a batarang with a rope attached to it wraps around the Scarecrow's ankle. Scarecrow then looks back to find Batman at the bottom of the staircase. Scarecrow then says, "Batman, I am surprised. I thought you would be at home, enjoying my fear toxin." The attendees of the charity then look at Batman, terrified, because all they see is a bat creature, and they try to attack him. The Scarecrow then looks at the attendees attacking Batman and says, "Marvelous, simply marvelous," and then he continues to run up the staircase. Batman fights his way through the crowd of attendees and runs up the staircase after him. When Batman gets to the top of the staircase on the roof of the building, he finds a blimp taking off. Dangling from the blimp is a hose spraying fear toxin. Batman jumps onto the hose and climbs it. At this point, the blimp has taken off, and the scene focuses on board the blimp to the Scarecrow talking about how his victory is complete. The university is at the grip of fear, and Batman has been annihilated. One of Scarecrow's henchmen then says, "Then who is that?" The henchman is pointing out the window of the blimp, and he's pointing at Batman, climbing the hose. The Scarecrow then looks at the henchman and says, "I don't believe it. Go take care of him." The henchman then looks at Scarecrow and says, "But boss," and then the Scarecrow shoves a gun in his chest and says, "Do it." The henchman then climbs to the top of the blimp to confront Batman. Batman then throws a batarang at the henchman's hand, knocking his gun to the floor. Both Batman and the henchman reach for the gun. They both get a hold of it and there's a struggle. During the struggle, the gun fires and the bullets go through the blimp into the controls of it, and a fire starts. We then see the Scarecrow inside the blimp, standing in front of the fire. He's yelling at one of his other henchmen to do something. The henchman replies with, "Do something? You're the genius." And then the henchman says, "Oh no, look," and then he points out the window, and we see that the blimp is heading towards a building. The blimp then hits the building, and Batman and the henchman on top of the blimp are knocked off. Batman then grapples to the nose of the blimp to safety, while the henchman falls to the street below. We then focus inside the blimp, where the other henchman is saying to Scarecrow, "What do we do now?" And the Scarecrow replies with, "I believe we can let my fear toxin do the rest." When Batman climbs to the nose of the blimp, a giant skeleton version of his father appears before him. He's saying how Bruce is a disgrace to the family name. Batman replies with, "No, I am not a disgrace. You are not my father. I am vengeance. I am the Knight. I am Batman." The giant skeleton version of his father then disappears. Batman then swings from the nose of the blimp, kicking in the window to the blimp and kicking Scarecrow in the face. Scarecrow is thrown across the room. Scarecrow's henchman then jumps onto Batman's back, and there's a struggle. Scarecrow then pulls out his dart gun and tries to shoot Batman with another fear toxin dart. When the Scarecrow fires the dart, Batman throws the henchman in front of it and he gets shot in the back. The henchman then begins to freak out, thinking that the walls are closing in on him, and then he jumps out the window of the blimp and falls to the street below. Batman then looks at Scarecrow and says, "It's over, Scarecrow." Scarecrow then replies with, "Only for you and the doctor, Batman." The Scarecrow then escapes, using a smaller plane that was on the blimp. Batman then grabs Dr. Long and grabs the briefcase filled with the donations from the charity and jumps off of the blimp. The blimp then crashes into a building and explodes. Batman and Dr. Long land safely on the roof of another building close by. The scene then goes to Batman driving away in the Batmobile. We then find out that the Batcomputer finished running the analysis on the piece of Scarecrow mask. The Batcomputer says that the mask is manufactured at 5 corporations, one of the corporations being Crane Chemicals. Batman then asks the Batcomputer to cross-reference former employees of Gotham University with any of the corporations. The Batcomputer then says Dr. Johnathan Crane, owner and operator of Crane Chemicals. Batman then says background on Crane. The Batcomputer then says former psychologist at Gotham University. Batman then says bingo, and then he drives to the Scarecrow's hideout. At the Scarecrow's hideout, we see Dr. Johnathan Crane talking about how it's not fair, revenge was just within his grasp. And then Dr. Crane turns to see that one of his canisters of fear toxin is leaking. So Dr. Crane goes towards the canister to shut it tight. As he's doing so, he breathes in some fear toxin. And then he sees a giant bat flying towards him, trying to attack him. Johnathan Crane, trying to avoid the giant bat, backs into Batman. Batman then says to him, "What's the matter, Scarecrow? Can't handle your own medicine?" Batman then takes Johnathan Crane to GCPD. At the GCPD, in Police Commissioner James Gordon's office, we see Detective Harvey Bullock and Jim talking. Harvey Bullock says that he bets his badge that the Scarecrow and Batman are in cahoots. Jim then points to the ceiling fan. We then see Johnathan Crane, unconscious, hanging from the ceiling fan from the back of his shirt with a post-it note of a bat symbol on his chest. Jim then says to Harvey, "Now, about that badge?" And then the scene goes to the cemetery, where Bruce is standing at his parents' grave. Bruce leaves roses, and then as Bruce walks away, his shadow is Batman's shadow. And that brings this story to an end. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, share, and subscribe. And when you do subscribe, make sure you hit the little bell so you get notified whenever I do drop a video. And I will see you guys in the next one.